Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. I welcome you to the second lecture of subject Education, Globalization and Change. In this second lecture of this subject, we are going to discuss Unit 1, Understanding Educational Change. So we formally start our lecture with an ayat from the Holy Quran. Truly, the religion with Allah is Islam. Inna Dina in the Allahil Islam. The, the Holy Prophet ﷺ said, the best among you is the one who doesn't harm others with his tongue and hands. So in third slide there is a quote of Rohn. So we must all suffer one of two things, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret or disappointment. So we have one option, that we work hard or we uh, be disciplined, or we have the pain of regret or disappointment after any failure, after any issues, problems. So those who live without discipline die without honor. So here is unit 1, understanding educational change, and we have to discuss four topics to understand educational change. So 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, concept of change in education. 1.2 is nature of education change. 1.3 is need and significance. And fourth subtopic for understanding educational change is scope of education change. So first of all, we are going to talk about concept of change in education. That's 1.1. So educational change is a broad term that refers to both shifting paradigms within education and efforts of reform within education. Whenever we talk about educational change, we are going to talk about two things. The paradigms means a pattern or a model of thinking that may be of educational change, that may be of psychology, that may be of research. The paradigms are the terms which are used as for a pattern or model of something. So within education, so whenever we talk about concept of change in education, we have to talk about the shifting paradigms as well as the efforts of reforms in education. So often जो paradigms होती हैं, these are the part of the educational reforms. Since most change within the field of education is initiated for the improvement of the institution, so we have to look upon these two things, the shifting paradigms, or whether we are going to bring reforms in education sector. Often we'll hear about the reforms that in education sector, in police sector, in bureaucratic sectors, in economic sector, there are reforms which are being brought. So these are the reforms. Those are with the changing times. So it is a broad term that refers to shifting trends and reforms in education. Jocelyn Wright said in or in an article, what is the meaning of educational change? Similarly, shifting perspectives within the field of education are most often a result of an awareness of new ideas and new needs. So these shifting paradigms as well as reforms are because of new ideas and new needs that with the time of with the passage of time, we have to take new steps and bring new reforms. For example, we are going to hold online lectures, and now the universities will be ready in future for any type of mishap, and they will continue online teaching very easily because now they felt the need of that. The efforts taken to adjust to those new ideas and meet those needs can be categorized as educational change. So, to meet those new ideas and new needs, we have to bring educational change, and those are known as educational change. This is also said by Jocelyn Wright. So, if we talk more about change, change is a complex process that happens within our organizational ecology, organizational environment, ecology, the surrounding environment, and that is difficult to achieve and is often an expression of political symbolism. These three uh, points in this sentence, that change is change always happens within an organization, that organization may be a school, a college, a university, any other institution, that and it is very difficult to achieve in all the educational institutions, in all the districts, in all the provinces, in all the countries. So it is often expressed as political symbolism, that every government comes and they talk about that we will bring educational reforms. So चेंज इज़ इनएविटेबल, ये बहुत नागुज़ीर है, लेकिन बात ये है कि ये हासिल करना बड़ा मुश्किल है। एजुकेशन सिस्टम में चेंज लेके आना बड़ा मुश्किल काम है। चेंजिंग द वेज इन विच टीचर्स टीच और स्टूडेंट लर्न, changing the curriculum, changing the teacher strategies, teaching strategies, teachers, classroom, school, community, these all outcomes may not be achievable. But every country, every nation tries to bring educational change. And for that, we have to change our curriculum, teaching strategies, our classroom environment, our schools, our communities. So, change is a very complex process. So, Seymour Saracen says that the history of educational reform is full of failures and disappointment regarding achieving new goals and implementing new ideas. So mainly the work began on change, educational change especially, in the 1960s. But educational change has several phases of development, and in early 20th, first 21st century, in which we are living now, and now it is the 20th year of this century. So in the early 21st century, much more is known about change strategies that typically lead to successful educational reforms. So James W. Guthrie says in his book Encyclopedia of Education, so they are trying to comprehend this concept, educational change. So its history starts from 1960s, and still we are evolving that change. We are becoming a part of that change, and we are going to bring that change. And ever changing needs uh, emphasize us, or they compel us to bring change. So this was all about the first topic, understanding education change. Now the second topic about understanding educational change is 1.2, and that's the nature of education change. What's the nature of this? How it can be? People do not understand the nature or consequences of most educational changes. So its nature is not understandable. Often we are confused. Often people are confused Even those who are becoming the part of that change, they can't even understand what is happening around them, that everyone is voluntarily or involuntarily includes in that change, but that person can't understand the consequences and meanings and form of that change. So this is the nature of change, that it is uh, uncertain. It has been implied that there are a number of things at stake. So we have two changes in goals, skills, philosophy, beliefs, behaviors, and so forth. So if any one of these elements is missing, what can we do? Then there will be the change that will not up to the mark, and that will not be standardized, and that will not be according to the values set by that society or that country. Subjectively, these different aspects are experienced in a diffuse, incoherent manner. People can't understand. This is the nature of the education change, that people can't, the stakeholders can't understand that what will be the impact of that change, and that's in a diffuse and incoherent manner. Change often is not conceived of as being multi-dimensional. That often we have seen that whenever the reforms or change is brought in any institution, in any sector like education, economy, social sector, etc., that is particularly brought in a singular or in any particular field of that sector. So that will be not the task that we will be easily bringing that change. In education sector, for example, some governments came and they talked about the curriculum. फिर उसके बाद कुछ हुकूमतें आई, उन्होंने जो है ना वो जो है ना टेक्स्ट बुक्स पे बात करना शुरू कर दी. फिर उसके बाद कुछ हुकूमतें आई, उन्होंने बात करना शुरू कर दी कि जी टीचिंग स्ट्रेटजीज नहीं ठीक. कुछ ने बात कर दी कि टीचर्स आर नॉट रेगुलर. So here we are. So different aspects are being misunderstood and they are not being implemented comprehensively and very easily. So change often is not conceived of as being multidimensional, that it should be multidimensional, but it is not. Objectively, it is possible to clarify the meaning of an educational change by identifying and describing its main separate dimensions. So we have to focus on main dimensions, like if we have to understand the nature of that change, we have to focus on every aspect of that change. For example, if we are going to bring in education reforms or change, then we have to talk about curriculum, teaching strategies, teaching training, examination system, and the standards of institutions. I mean, we have to consider every aspect of that field, that particular sector, like education sector, so we can bring comprehensive change. But often it is objectively understood, and it is uh, focused on some of the aspects of that. So thus it is very tough for us to understand the nature of educational change. So its nature is ununderstandable in those scenarios where we can't handle the separate dimensions of that change. Ignorance of those dimensions, a number of interesting phenomena, like some people accept an innovation, they do not understand that often we are thrust upon, we are compelled to, हम मजबूर हो जाते हैं कि हम पर जो ना प्रेशर इतना आता है कि हम जो है ना मजबूर हो जाते हैं कि उस चीज़ को फॉलो करने के लिए, उस पर अमल दरामद करने के लिए, हालांकि हम समझ नहीं पा रहे होते कि हो क्या रहा है, हमने करना क्या है, हमारा उसमें क्या किरदार है. सो Some components of change are implemented and others are not. This is a question, why some components of a change are implemented and others are not, and why strategies for change neglected certain essential components. So some of the strategies also neglected. So these are all the questions. For example, why some people accept an innovation they do not understand, and why some components of a change are implemented and others not, and why strategies for change neglect certain essential components. So these all Michael Fullan. Whenever we talk about educational change, we have to talk about Michael Fullan, who is the author of a very comprehensive book. So the book of Michael Fullan is The New Meaning of Change. That's the fourth edition, very famous book regarding uh, understanding educational change. So in his book, he says that change often is not conceived as a being multi-dimensional. So if it's any one dimension is considered, and thus that change often fails. So third topic regarding understanding educational change is 1.3, that is need and significance of educational change. What is the need? Why we require educational change? So Miller et al. In 2009 very comprehensively uh, described three reasons of educational change, that why educational change is necessary. And he says that because increased globalization, second is advancements in technology, and third is developments in research into teaching and learning approaches. That we always talk about globalization, and we will talk about it comprehensively in this subject in the coming lectures about the globalization. So increased globalization, that whole of the world has become a global village. We are connected with one another. Even MOOCs, mass online open mass open online courses by the Harvard and MIT institutions. Then there are courses being offered by Coursera and edX. So these all courses are now being free of cost offered to the other nations, that now we have been connected globally. So our economy, our education, our cultures, our people are connected with one another throughout the world. So the world has globalized. So we need, so we are learning from Finland, America, Britannia. We are understanding the educational system of the developed nations, and we are implementing those strategies, those reforms in our countries. So then there is an advancements in technology, that with the changing scenarios, with the changing times, we are going to bring advancements, and we are talking about bringing advancements in our educational systems, that in before early 2000s we were unaware of using computers, but now we are using it as the situations and current scenario regarding the current environments and current approaches for studies. So there are also developments and research into teaching and learning approaches. Increased globalization leads to a more culturally and linguistically diverse population. That as globalization is increasing, so people are more connected to different cultures and different languages. As people are going to European countries for learning their culture as well as their knowledges. So this is globalization. This is why, according to Miller et al., these three were the basic reasons why we need educational change. So people need change to improve their work, Here are the two researchers, Robbins and DiCenzo. They pointed out that factors that drive change are both external and internal forces that constrain managers. So, educational managers, here we are talking about. So, in educational institutions, they say that we bring to change and we need to bring change, and there are internal as well as external pressure to bring educational change. So if a government makes policy, so we are compelled to bring that change. मिसाल के तौर पर अभी जब ये सिचुएशन हुई है इस आलमी वबा की वजह से, कोविड-19 की वजह से, then as per the criteria set by Higher Education Commission, we were compelled to prepare these lectures for online teaching. And this is the example of why we bring educational reforms or educational change. This is the need. The ultimate goal of a change is to make practice better or more effective in their work. So we need change to improve our work, or their work means the work of the educational institutions, the works of the governments and other institutions. So wherever we bring educational change, we have to talk about that change, and we are compelled to bring that change. So 1.4 is about scope of education change. Education is generally thought to promote social, economic, and cultural transformation during times of fundamental national and global changes. So this is the scope of educational change, that it brings social, economic, and cultural transformations. That if we talk about economic field, that many multinational companies are coming to Pakistan and other parts of the world to work. For example, if we talk about food chains, or we talk about different NGOs working in different countries as well as government organizations, even DFID, Department for International Development, that is bringing social change through granting educational grants to education sector in Pakistan. इसी तरह USAID, United States International Development, American International Development, so they are also providing funds to the poor countries, and they also influence our policies. So this bring social, economic, and cultural transformation when the global changes come. Indeed, educational change has become a common theme in many education systems and in plans for the development of schools. So educational change, that's a common theme, that whenever we talk about any school, any institution, any college, university, that been it has been very lavish idea that this institution, this sector is bringing educational change. So education has to meet the needs of the globalized classroom. This is its scope. Advancement in technology is leading our way to different types of knowledges, that we can get every type of knowledge from everywhere. So it is increasingly difficult to predict what type of businesses will emerge in the job market of the future. So market requirements, this is the scope of educational change, that with the changing scenarios, like nowadays the demand of online learning and the usage of technology, like for example कि अब सिचुएशन ऐसी जो है ना वो हो गई हुई है कि अब आप देखें कि मीडिया और मेडिसिन सेक्टर और ऑनलाइन जो काम कर रहे हैं, इनके अलावा बाकी तकरीबन सारी दुनिया इस वक्त जो है ना वो बंद है। तो अब वक्त के साथ साथ जो है ना वो तब्दीली आ रही है, और उसके साथ साथ जो है ना वो नई चीज़ें आ रही हैं। और आइंदा सालों में कौन से बिजनेसेस जो है ना इमर्ज करेंगे, अब दुनिया को पता चल रहा है कि भाई ऑनलाइन जो है ना वो रिसोर्सेज की बड़ी इंपॉर्टेंस है और उन पे हम अमल कर सकते हैं। दस व्हाट इज़ रिक्वायर्ड आर unique talents, skills and knowledge, the ability to adapt to changes and creativity, and this all is brought by educational change. New skills, new knowledges, and the ability to adapt to changes and creativity. And of course, educational change is the ultimate repository for all of this. That these all qualities can be brought in us through the educational change, and we change our policies, and we change our so our aims and goals and objectives, and encourage students to pursue their strengths, that they have to control their they have to overcome their weaknesses, the students, and they should pursue their strengths. And the universities and the institutions guide that what are the educational reforms are coming, and how people should adapt to those. So this is also about the scope of education change, that times change and the ways we teach and learn change accordingly. So this is very comprehensive statement, and this suits to our current situations. In his book Good Education in Age of Measurement, Besta कहते हैं कि while there is a lot of change and innovation going on at classroom, school and policy levels, the focus is often more on the how. How can we introduce these new ideas in the classroom than on the why, and why should we actually do this? To find answers of these two questions always provide basis for the scope of educational change. So whenever we find the answers of these questions, the how and why, how we can introduce those ideas, and why we have to introduce those ideas. So whenever we find the answers of these two questions, we have a basis for educational change. So this was all about understanding educational change. That was the first chapter of the first unit, you may say, the subject education, globalization and change. And this is the basis of our subject education, globalization and change. And this needs to be understood very comprehensively, and this will be very helpful for us, as we will be able to achieve our understanding in this subject education, globalization and change. सो पहले यूनिट में आपको जो भी कोई परेशानी होगी उसके सवालात के जवाबात मैं इंशाल्लाह आपको देने के लिए तैयार हूँ। तो जैसे जैसे क्लासेस हमारी चलती जाएंगी तो हमें अंदाज़ा होता जाएगा कि किस तरह हमने कोऑर्डिनेट करना है। तो इसको मैंने जो है ना वो पीडीएफ फॉर्म में भी एक पूरा डॉक्यूमेंट बना के, कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव डॉक्यूमेंट, बड़ा जामे किस्म का डॉक्यूमेंट बना के जो है ना वो अपलोड कर दिया है, जो हमारा फोल्डर है जो गूगल क्लासरूम में। तो उसको भी हम देख लेंगे, और इसके अलावा फिर इंशाल्लाह इसके बाद सेकंड चैप्टर। तो अभी तक हमने जो बातें की हैं वो हैं, सबसे पहले हमने डिस्कस किए थे कोर्स आउटलाइन, उसके बाद मैंने ये तीनों टर्म्स एक्सप्लेन की थी, एजुकेशन, ग्लोबलाइजेशन एंड चेंज। एंड आफ्टर दैट आई हैव डिस्कस्ड विद यू द फर्स्ट यूनिट of the subject education, globalization and change in this lecture. So I hope that you have understood that what is educational change, and why we need it, and what's the nature of this, and what is the scope of educational change. So these were the four topics which were discussed in this lecture. So this will be helpful for you to understand educational change. तो दूसरी मैं बात ये करना चाहूँगा कि आप लोगों को जो है ना वो इनको बहुत अच्छे तरीके से पढ़ने की ज़रूरत है। जहाँ कहीं से आपको समझ आता है, किसी वीडियो से, यूट्यूब से आप हेल्प ले सकते हैं, तो इसको समझें। इसको जो है ना वो जितने अच्छे तरीके से आप समझ लेंगे उतना ही आपके लिए आसानी होगी। सो थैंक यू फॉर लिसनिंग मी। अस्सलाम वालेकुम।